shock and disbelief as investigators announced that the co-pilot of the Germanwings flight deliberately crashed the plane. The findings prompt airlines to change their cockpit regulations. Yemen's president flees to Saudi Arabia, this as a Riyadh-led coalition carries out a second wave of bombings against Houthi rebels around the Yemeni capital and further south. And the British electoral campaign is in full swing. Prime Minister David Cameron and opposition leader Ed Miliband share the stage on national television, the two men neck and neck in the polls. Those are the top stories this hour. Thanks for joining us. First, investigators are digging into the past of the co-pilot of Germanwings Flight 9525. They're searching for clues as to why the 27-year-old would deliberately crash the plane, killing all 150 people on board. Well, there are reports now that Lubitz suffered a depressive period 6 years ago, which interrupted his flight training. And news of the co-pilot's apparent actions, well, has shocked many, especially in his hometown. France 24's Ketavan Gorjestani reports.
This computer belonged to Andreas Lubitz, part of personal effects seized by German police after they searched his home. In Montabaur, in western Germany, where Lubitz lived, his actions came as a shock to those who knew him, like these members of his flight club.
He was great. Sometimes he was quiet, but he was just another boy like so many others here. He was well integrated, and I think he had a lot of fun here.
What he's accused of is unimaginable. I'm just asking that people think it through before drawing any hasty conclusions.
Lubitz had started working at Germanwings in September 2013, straight after graduating from the Lufthansa flight school. The 27-year-old had clocked in more than 600 flight hours, and according to the Lufthansa CEO, the co-pilot was 100% fit to fly.
I should note that 6 years ago his training had been interrupted, and we assessed his piloting skills and his fitness, and he went back to flight school. After that, he successfully passed all medical checks and psychological tests. He came through all of that with flying colours. There had never been the slightest doubt cast on his fitness or his capabilities.
French authorities say he deliberately caused the crash, but have yet to give an explanation. German media say he may have been depressed following a difficult breakup.
Well, meanwhile, in Germany, President Gauck has attended a memorial service in the western town of Haltern. It's here that 16 students and 2 teachers from the local high school, well, they were killed in the crash. Well, as the search continues now for the second black box, investigators are piecing together a clearer picture of what happened using the voice data recorder. Well, that was found shortly after the crash. Here's French prosecutor Brice Robin.
We can hear the captain asking the co-pilot to take the controls, and we hear the sound of a seat being pulled back and the sound of a door closing. One might reasonably deduce that he went out to go to the bathroom. At this moment, the co-pilot is alone at the controls. It was while he was alone that the co-pilot operated the button known as the flight monitoring system to activate the plane's descent. The activating of this altitude selector can only be deliberate.
Well, in wake of these details released by the prosecutor, certain airlines have rushed to change their rules so as to require 2 crew members in the cockpit at all times. France 24's Debora2 Laurent has more.
Reinforced cockpit doors were introduced post 9/11, designed to prevent intruders from entering the cockpit. But after Germanwings co-pilot Andreas Lubitz is suspected of locking his captain out, European and Canadian airlines are ramping up security measures. British low-cost company EasyJet announced in a statement that it will impose 2 crew members in the cockpit at all times, a rule that goes into motion this Friday.
I would either say it's an absolute rule that no matter what is happening, there should always be 2 people in the cockpit, or alternatively, if you do need to leave, then there should be someone else who is trained to fly or has a rudimentary knowledge that can come in and stand in. So there is always occupancy of 2 people.
It's already standard procedure for American airline companies, but not European ones. Among those moving to change their security policy, Norwegian Air, Air Berlin, Lufthansa, Irish airliners Aer Lingus and Ryanair, and also Canadian company Air Transat. Lufthansa, the Germanwings parent company, says it will discuss stricter security measures. But the question remains, just what could have stopped Lubitz from steering the aircraft into a mountainside?
Well, now power has been restored at Amsterdam's Schiphol airport this after a major outage hit the Dutch capital. While incoming flights are still being diverted to other regional airports and delays are expected on all outbound flights. Well, rail and tram service in Amsterdam was also severely disrupted, while hospitals were forced to run on emergency power. Well, the outage is said to have been caused by work at an electricity substation southeast of the capital. Moving on now, and the president of Yemen has left his country. Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi is now in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Well, the U.S.-backed leader fled Yemen on Wednesday as Houthi rebels advanced on his stronghold in the southern port of Aden. The Houthi push has prompted a Saudi Arabian-led coalition to carry out airstrikes against the rebels. For a second night, Saudi fighter jets dropped bombs on multiple cities in the south as well as near the presidential compound in the capital. Solange Mougin reports now on the next possible moves for the coalition.
A series of Saudi-led airstrikes that could be paving the way for boots on the ground in Yemen. After bombing multiple cities in the south and in the capital, Sana'a, Saudi-led warplanes hit districts of the north, where there's strong rebel support. This push to weaken rebel Houthi fighters is part of a Saudi-led military strategy, one that could lead to a ground offensive by troops from across the Arab world. At least that's what the Egyptian foreign minister hinted at during an Arab League summit on Thursday.
The coalition had to answer the appeal from President Hadi and his government. Egypt announced its military and political support and is planning to participate with the coalition in air and naval strikes. Also, an infantry attack, if it is necessary.
Egyptian military officials told the Associated Press that they already have troop-carrying ships in place off the coast of Yemen. Egypt has outspokenly come out in support of the Saudi-led airstrikes, as have at least 10 other countries. While the Saudi military said they currently have no plans for a ground offensive, state media reported that 150,000 troops have been deployed to the Yemeni border. The leader of the Houthi rebels called the Saudi-led airstrikes an unjust invasion, one he said has been bought by American, Israeli, and the United States said they back the intervention. There won't be any direct American action. The strikes in Yemen have put the Americans in a delicate position at a time when they're negotiating a nuclear deal with Iran, a Shiite country that's been supporting the rebels.
Well, for more on the story, I'm joined in the newsroom by Armin Georgian. Now, Armin, walk us through this coalition.